Welcome back to The Watch, and if you think I'm doing a solo review, you'd be wrong, because I'm actually joined by my lovely wife, the lady.
I don't come very often, it's been a little while.
It has, hasn't it?
But, you know, movie covered in pink, seemingly quite girly. I figured I'd jump in.
I noticed you said seemingly there. Depends what type of girl. So, we just watched the Barbie movie, and I have a summary here of the Barbie movie that I've also tweeted out. I think it's quite succinct, and it might give you an idea of my thoughts of this film. And, of course, we're going to elaborate and justify these thoughts as well. So, this film is one of the most blatant, man-hating, activism-charged, deranged, subversive, intersectional pieces of insane, hyper-indulgent, third-wave feminist propaganda I have ever seen. And I'm not kidding. Didn't know which way this film was going to go. It looked fun by the trailers. What were your thoughts on the trailers?
Yeah, the trailers looked fun and goofy and nothing to take seriously. I was like, oh, this could be a bit of fun. Might even take the kids.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it'd be a bit of a laugh and you don't really need to worry much about it.
And so that's right, the trailers didn't have any kind of warning signs that this was just for propaganda to really push certain ideologies or anything like that. And so I was wondering, this kind of looked fun. I am interested in the way Barbie is, or properties that Barbie puts out, because I have a daughter and she loves Barbie, and so I think Barbie can be a really positive influence on girls. And shockingly enough, I've seen some Barbie movies and shows that weren't terrible. There was a cartoon series called Barbie Dream House of Fun. Was that the one?
Life in the Dream House or something, I believe. We saw a remarkable amount of that as our daughter was growing up, and it was fine.
It was actually funny. It was a well-made show, and so I was thinking if they did something in the lines of that, this could be a fun, girly show that my daughter could like and could be a positive thing for girls just in general. And so there was that. And then the actors started to drop some comments about how feminist this film is, and also how it puts a nail in the idea of gender stereotypes and stuff. And then on the opposite end, the director, or someone high up who made it, I think it was the director, was saying, this isn't a feminist film. Well, now I know, having watched it, whoever said this wasn't a feminist film, it was lying through their teeth. This is an insanely, not only, because there are different levels of feminism. No, this is third wave, intersectional, subversive, man-hating, power-hungry, destructive feminism type of that. And it goes off the cliff. It jumps the shark, and we'll explain a lot of the ins and outs. So overall, I hated this film.
And you could tell as he watched it that he hated it.
I looked to you as well, though, and I didn't see many smiles.
There was the...
Hey, it's Kay, and this is Skittles, plastic molding technician. Yeah, I Barbenheimered. There's going to be an Oppenheimer video coming after this. A lot of very smart people have already talked about the cultural/marketing phenomenon that was Barbenheimer. So I'm going to focus on the films themselves, because I think at this point anything I have to say about that obvious marketing ploy or the sad attempts to replicate it that followed would already kinda be beating a dead horse. Speaking of which, let's talk about liberal feminism. I liked Barbie, certainly more than I expected to like what is ultimately a Mattel product. Part of what makes the film so interesting is that it is a mess of contradictions. It wholeheartedly espouses ideas, pretty heavy-handedly, that it simultaneously seeks to challenge or reject. This has confounded a lot of, let's call them commentators, who spent the time after Barbie's release trying to figure out if the film was woke or not. So in trying to unravel what ideas the film is grappling with, let's start with Barbie Land. There is a horror to Barbie Land, a perfect place where everyone always has a perfect day in their perfect houses, but there is an undertone of deviation from this set script being unacceptable. Your feet not always being shaped the exact way needed to accommodate high heels, having cellulite, things that are a little too real. These provoke a visceral disgust in everyone in Barbie Land. When Barbie starts thinking about death, something that presumably the immortal Barbie folk do not experience, she is sent to be corrected. Mattel itself briefly serves as an antagonistic force, trying to capture Barbie once she escapes to the real world in order to literally put her back in a box. And this strikes me as a pretty clear condemnation of the cultural legacy of Barbie and indeed the way all idealized images of women are sold. These are perfect, impossible figures against which you must compare yourself. And any imperfection, anything too complicated, too human, is considered wrong. Barbie Land's values reflect Mattel's corporate values. Now, there's quite a lot of self-awareness here. Barbie, the product, brands itself as this empowering image for young girls, showing them that they can be anything. Doctors, lawyers, Oreo product placement, while still confining them to certain feminine expectations. The movie itself is not shy about denouncing the impossible standards to which women are often held. They have to be sexually available to men, but not too available, or it's a moral failing. They have
Good evening, this is the Oscar expert here, and it's Barbie analysis time. I watched Barbie a second time, and I took lots of notes. I really do believe it's one of the most thought-provoking and interesting movies this year. I think Barbie has a lot to say about our tumultuous and ever-evolving relationship with gender roles, both in our personal lives and as a society. Greta Gerwig's film supposes that gender roles are something we invent to help us validate ourselves and understand our worth in a confusing world. It shows both how we can become empowered by imagining ourselves in these roles, and how expectations to fill these roles can hold us back. And it even offers a vision for how we can venture beyond them. The beginning of the movie sets the stage by detailing Barbie's introduction to and impact on the real world. With Barbie, instead of just modeling themselves after mothers, which is what baby dolls encourage, girls can now aspire towards a role model or an idol. One that is beautiful, accomplished, has her own money, her own job, her own car. Of course, a lot of this movie is examining the ways in which Barbie created harmful beauty standards and encouraged rampant consumerism, but it does offer a voice to those who Barbie maybe once was empowering for. Barbie's real-life creator, Ruth Handler, is a character in the movie, and one important thing that she said towards the end is that nobody looks like Barbie. Like, she understands that Barbie is an unattainable beauty standard. She didn't design Barbie to look exactly like girls. But for her generation in 1959, having an unattainable standard to aspire towards was powerful and important. Barbie was an idea of what women could be in a world where women weren't presented with as many models for what they could be. The film is about our relationship with idols and
This video is brought to you by Squarespace, the all-in-one website platform for entrepreneurs to stand out and succeed online. Today I saw Barbie, the latest from Greta Gerwig. This was not only my most anticipated movie of the year, but it's also everybody else's. My theater was full of people dressed up in pink. It felt like 2006. I loved it. Me personally, I don't have a huge connection to Barbie, but I do love Greta Gerwig. She is one of my favorite writers and directors, and to see her dive into such unique yet challenging source material had me intrigued. Yes, you heard me. Barbie is challenging source material. No, I'm not talking about the complexities of Barbie as a character. That's one thing, and that's actually what I thought Gerwig would do just fine with. Now, it's the fact that it's based on such a popular product and that Mattel was directly involved. I was a little worried going into this movie for that reason, based on just the trailers alone. At least this year, I'm so used to an exciting and unique idea turning out to be just fine. Not offensively bad, not amazing, just somewhere in the middle. When companies get involved, filmmakers have to play it extremely safe. Driving people to the theater is hard enough, so that's also a reason studios might lean towards something safe and good enough, sometimes even less than good enough, over something truly strange. And I was worried Barbie would be that. I was extra worried knowing how much I love both Gerwig and Baumbach. I didn't want to see them flop. And you know what? I am an idiot. I don't know why or how I could ever doubt these two, because Barbie is a blast, and I really liked it. Barbie is about what happens when Barbie must go to the real world with Ken, and what happens when the stuff in the real world starts affecting stuff in the Barbie world. The film starts with the 2001 reference from that first teaser, which then leads directly into Barbie going about one of her perfect days in Barbie Land. It is some of the most enjoyable filmmaking I've seen all year. Every new detail, every new character, every new prop, every new gag only made my grin wider. I was overwhelmed with joy watching that opening sequence unfold. Think about the the everything is awesome scene from the Lego movie, but pink and even happier. While I'm on it, this feels like a good time to just gush about the production design of this movie because Jesus Christ. Anytime I'm in Barbie Land, it does genuinely feel like I'm in a toy world. The amount of detail put into the color of these sets, to the textures, even the tiniest of props, it's nothing short of masterful. I haven't seen a contemporary film actually make me believe in movie magic like this since La La Land. Greta Gerwig cites Jacques Demy and Jacques Tati as influences for the world, and that is crystal clear in just how playful and filled in all of these sets feel. Even the Mattel office scene, that especially feels like something out of Playtime, and it's the first time I've seen someone come close to what Tati was doing there. Yes, even closer than Wes Anderson. And you guys know me, I'm a huge Jacques Tati fan, and that just, to see this made me so happy. The cinematography by Rodrigo Prieto is stunning. I promise it looks so much better on a big theater screen than it does online. The colors really pop, and all of the traveling sequences look beautiful. Ugh, everything in the weird Barbie house, it's just so much fun. It doesn't feel like they're just throwing colors at the wall. It all feels like very intentional where they put the colors and how they design these sets. And
is it my destiny to live and die a life of blonde fragility? I'm just kidding.
So spoiler alert, it turns out that the Barbie movie involves Ken trying to bring patriarchy to Barbie Land. And I don't just mean that thematically or in terms of subtext, Ken is in favor of male domination. I mean that literally. He explicitly says, I want patriarchy, because I guess nuanced writing is not one of Greta Gerwig's strengths. And not only that, but then Ken also tries to amend the Barbie Land Constitution to remove Barbies from positions of power. This is not hyperbole. This is not me being overdramatic. This is actually what happens in this film. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's talk about the Barbie movie. So this is a movie that I know so many people, especially in my demographic, i.e. women in their 20s and 30s, are excited to see. And I think that's largely due to just nostalgia bait, but also the fact that the marketing admittedly was very impressive. They really did a good job evoking all of that girly wonder that comes along with the Barbie brand. And not only that, if you've seen the trailers and the promotional material that's been coming out for this film, you'll note that unlike Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, that initial slip up.
You stole it. Then you stole it.
And then I stole it. It's called capitalism.
Unlike Indiana Jones, the marketing for Barbie has been pretty apolitical, so much so that a lot of people have been cautiously optimistic, thinking, hey, maybe, just maybe, this will not be some woke snooze fest. Maybe this will just be a nice, fun comedy film that we can all enjoy over the summer, right? Well, no, I can't believe some people haven't learned this yet. We cannot have nice things with Hollywood as it is. This movie is super woke. And that's not the case if you ask me, but that especially is not the case when it comes to the Barbie movie. When people say that this movie is leftist propaganda, we're not just talking about, oh, it's pro-women's empowerment. No, we are actually talking about feminism. And it's mentioned explicitly. Women suffering at the hands of men, the evils of patriarchy, you name it. And in case anyone out there is being dismissive of those who are correctly identifying this film as just feminist trash, we're actually going to go through the plot so you can recognize how awful this is, because this is way worse than I could have ever imagined. And I'm not even just talking about social and political messaging here. It's also really clumsily written and awkward at different points. But to that end, I want to give another spoiler alert. If you haven't seen this movie yet, and for some reason you still want to after hearing about how bad it is, pause this video and come back to it later, because we are going to be getting into specifics here. So the Barbie movie basically opens up by talking about how historically, traditionally, little girls have always played with dolls, but those dolls have always been of babies. That is until the Barbie doll came along and really changed the scene. And by the way, this is actually true. This isn't just for the movie. If you know anything about the history of the Barbie doll, it launched in the 1950s, and before that, yes, obviously little girls were playing with dolls, but they were dolls of little kids in which they could play, pretend as being a mom, instead of playing with dolls that were of real women where they could kind of act out different aspects of adult lives. But anyway, just a little aside for people who actually care about the history of Barbie. But back to the film. We are then introduced to Barbie Land, which exists separately and distinct from the real world. And Barbie Land is exactly what little girls would hope it would be. It's pink, it's perfectly manicured, it's sparkly, and it is the home of our main character played by Margot Robbie, stereotypical Barbie, i.e. she is the Barbie that everybody thinks about when they say, hey, a Barbie. She's blonde and basically perfect, and I will give Greta Gerwig credit where it is due. I did have a lot of fun seeing how Barbie Land is portrayed. Barbie wakes up in her dream house, which of course is all open and has no stairs because that's what Barbie dream houses look like. She has perfect hair even first thing in the morning, and she takes a shower where there is absolutely no water coming out because that's again, how Barbie dream houses work. She also eats fake breakfast food and chooses to get ready from a variety of outfits. As someone who grew up with Barbies, loved Barbie, and is just pro-girliness in general, this was all very fun for me. I will admit, at this point in the film, I was actually kind of vibing with it, especially since throughout this movie, when they are looking at Barbie Land, they're actually showcasing real Barbie products that if you grew up with Barbie, you may remember, whether that's specific outfits or specific cars that Barbie actually had and you can buy. But then things start to go downhill when we as audiences are introduced to the rest of Barbie Land. Because you see, Barbie Land and Barbie herself, it's all very feminist. And that's not just me projecting politics onto this film. The narrator, Helen Mirren, who is very talented, by the way, she literally says, yeah, Barbie, she's feminist. She thinks she's feminist. She thinks she's fixed things for women because, hey, Barbie can be anything, so therefore women can be anything in the real world, right? Yeah, that was the first red flag I got from this movie, and it happened like 5 minutes in, which is not a good sign. And in Barbie Land, yeah, predictably, all of the positions of power are filled by Barbies, these women. The president is Barbie, the Supreme Court is made up of Barbies. And there are also lawyer Barbies, and it's kind of random, but there is a scene in this film where I'm pretty sure one of the lawyer Barbies, who is also a plus-size Barbie, is arguing the Citizens United case to the Supreme Court, or the Barbie Supreme Court. And I don't know how familiar you guys are with that case, but basically plus-sized lawyer Barbie, she is arguing that essentially, no, a nonprofit corporation, i.e. a charity, should not be able to use their resources to play political ads because I guess in feminist Barbie Land, they are anti-free speech, which actually makes a lot of sense for feminism. Continuing in that same vein, though, Barbie Land is also very representative and very diverse. Not only do we have plus-size Barbie, we also have Barbies of all different races, which isn't new for Barbie. That's been a thing since at least I was a kid. And we also, quite notably, have things like wheelchair Barbie, handicap Barbie. And this is where things might get a little controversial, we also have trans Barbie. That's right, biologically male, born as a man Barbie. Now, to be fair, I guess trans Barbie, they don't explicitly say, hey Barbie, you're trans. Are you pre or post-op? Are you on the hormones or anything like that? But at the same time, the voice of this Barbie, let's just say it is of a cadence that basically there is no doubt that this is a Barbie who is biologically male yet presents as feminine. Which brings us to Ken, or should I say Kens, because in Barbie Land, like, there are many Barbies and they all call each other Barbie and say, hey Barbie. There are also many Kens who are basically just, the males of Barbie Land. Well, our Barbie, Margot Robbie, stereotypical Barbie, she has her own Ken, who is Ryan Gosling, who plays Beach Ken specifically. And it is kind of funny that they clarify he's not surfer Ken or lifeguard Ken or anything like specialty like that. He's just general beach Ken. Well, Ken is needy and desperately craves Barbie's attention because he pretty much doesn't exist outside of her interests and also the beach, yet she is very aloof toward him. Overall, though, things are going great for stereotypical Barbie in Barbie Land. That is until one day during her party, she admits that she gets thoughts of death. That's right, which isn't very Barbie-ish.
Do you guys ever think about dying?
So that's the first sign that things are amiss with stereotypical Barbie, but things get worse from there because not only is she having thoughts of death, but the next morning when she wakes up, she actually has bad morning breath. She doesn't magically float down from the top of her dream house into her car anymore through the power of, I don't know, imagination. And this is when things get really serious. At one point, her heels, well, they actually touch the floor, which if you've played with Barbies, you'll know, like her heels, her feet are always tippy-toe because she wears high heels. And so the other Barbies, not really knowing what to do with stereotypical Barbie, they send her to go see Weird Barbie, who is the Barbie that lives far away from all the other Barbies, who's kind of broken because she was played with too much, who is played by Kate McKinnon. She's wacky and zany in that kind of Kate McKinnon way, and Kate McKinnon, she's just one of those many female actors, especially comedians, where it's like, how does she keep getting roles? I'm pretty sure that everything she's in keeps bombing, and yet still they keep slapping her in these movies. I guess Hollywood really likes her, if nobody else. But anyway, Kate McKinnon Barbie informs stereotypical Margot Robbie Barbie that she is actually functioning because the little girl who's playing with her must be feeling sad, and due to I forget how they explained it, but essentially tear in the space-time continuum, the little girl's feelings are now affecting Barbie's feelings, which is leading to, among other things, thoughts of death and yes, even cellulite on Barbie. And so for Barbie to fix things, she actually has to go to the real world and cheer up her little girl, i.e. fix her so that Barbie can be fixed in Barbie Land. And I'm just gonna pause here and say that at this point in the movie, obviously there are telltale signs of wokeness, yet despite that, I was still having a relatively okay time watching it just because the Barbie Land that they created was pretty fun and the plot made sense and it was kind of funny and it was just overall, I'd seen worse things. However, from this point on in the film, i.e. when they go from Barbie Land to the real world, it gets so much worse. It gets so much more preachy, so much less funny, so much more awkward, and just it's a real turning point, not in a good way. So anyway, Barbie departs from Barbie Land on a journey to go to the real world, and Ken decides to tag along because the other Kens are making fun of the fact that Ryan Gosling's Barbie, stereotypical Barbie, doesn't really seem that into him, and so to prove them wrong, he wants to go with Barbie. So they make it to the real world and they emerge in LA in their, of course, very Barbie 80s rollerblading outfits. And these were some of the images that first leaked to social media. And everyone was so excited when they saw Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling dressed up in these outfits. And admittedly, I'll just come out and say it. The outfits were really well done in this movie. Wardrobe was on point. And this was one of my favorite aspects of the film, just seeing all the outfits. I'm a girl. Okay, what do you want me to say? But immediately upon entering LA, Barbie's aspirations for the real world are shot down because it turns out that the real world, or LA more specifically, it's super rapey and a little bit aggressive. From the start, Barbie is objectified and faces street harassment. And of course, like a movie like this, you're gonna have fun fish out of water moments when you can contrast Barbie Land to the real world. But Greta Gerwig decided that, hey, the real world is actually super terrible and you will be immediately harassed as a woman. Which, I mean, maybe is the case when you're in LA, i.e. a hellhole, but most of the country, I don't think is like that. But basically, while Barbie is fending off predatory men, Ken conversely is having the time of his life because he realizes that, hang on a second, he is respected in the real world as a man, and men matter in the real world. In fact, they actually run everything. And in the film, we actually see a montage through Ken's eyes of what it means to be a man. And you got gym bros working out, you have men doing business in suits, being disrespectful to female underlings, as well as just cops riding on horses and trucks. And it's just like, yeah, patriarchy. And Ken's loving that, by the way. So he goes off to research patriarchy. He literally has a book that says patriarchy. Once more, this film is not nuanced or subtle, but he goes off to research that while Barbie tries to connect with or find the little girl that she's connected to who is going through a hard time and therefore, giving her a hard time. So Barbie gets these visions and manages to find a teenage girl who she believes is her owner, whose name is Sasha. Sasha looks like she's about 14 and immediately, when confronted by Barbie, lets her know that actually she hates Barbies and girls in general hate Barbie because she is anti-feminist and pro-corrupt consumer capitalism and bad for the environment and teaches women to be insecure about their bodies and pushes unhealthy beauty standards. And she actually also calls Barbie a fascist, like literally a fascist. So anyway, this really upsets Barbie, but then lo and behold, she is confronted by workers from Mattel, who she is super happy to see because she thinks they will help her. Because yeah, in this film, they're very self-aware. They do talk about how Mattel are the ones who
Hello everyone, I'm Alana and welcome to my gaming channel where we also talk about movies sometimes. Today I'm talking about Barbie. I am a little bit late because I got a new PC and it died. So here we are. The webcam quality looks worse than it did in the last video. My PC died. So, Barbie. I overall did not like this film very much, though there are things in it that I liked a lot. So let's start with those. I think the performances across the board were incredible. Ryan Gosling certainly stole the show, but I also thought that Simu Liu and Margot Robbie, everyone in this film I thought was super fun to watch, with maybe the exception of the teenage girls. Also, I guess before we go any further, I am just going to talk about spoilers in this one because it's kind of too hard to not talk about it. Like, I would much prefer to review this movie
The impression given by the trailers. The Barbie live-action feature film is quickly proving to be one of the most divisive movies of our time. Most think it is outright misandric and seemingly aims to sow discord between girls and boys. But there are some who think the movie is uplifting and has a positive message for men and women alike. So, who is right? Finding that out will take some unpacking. In this interpretation/review, I will begin with establishing my own history with Barbie and any bias I may have going in, before going through the story, the layers, and why I think this is one of the most toxic, vile, and mean-spirited breakup movies of our time. First things first, I know I am not the target audience for a Barbie movie. It quite literally wasn't made for me, and that is fine. That established, I do feel I am sufficiently knowledgeable about Barbie and filmmaking in general that I may offer an informed opinion. You see, on this channel, we are all about preserving and respecting the integrity of the original source material of any adaptation, regardless of subject matter. And for this channel, I did a deep dive into all things Barbie way back in 2016, which is when my history with Barbie began. That's when Amy Schumer was revealed to be in talks for the role, and while I'm not the one narrating that video, those are nonetheless my words, for I'm the one who wrote the script, and to that end, I studied the history of Barbie and scoured through literally hundreds of leaked Sony emails on WikiLeaks, piecing together the detailed development history of this movie, and on top of that, I edited the video. Over the course of all that research though, something weird happened. I became intrigued and, for lack of a better term, invested. I came to appreciate the significance of the Barbie brand and what it has meant. And so I came to hope, against hope as it would turn out, that the Barbie movie would respect the history and integrity of what the Barbie brand stands for, instead of being yet another disrespectful adaptation, where a filmmaker high on their own sense of superiority and self-entitlement sees fit to deconstruct the subject matter at hand and subvert it into something it never was. Alas, Barbie ended up being directed by Greta Gerwig, who is exactly that kind of filmmaker. And so, she ended up doing to Barbie what Paul Feig did to Ghostbusters and what Rian Johnson did to Star Wars, which was to turn something inclusive and for everyone into divisive propaganda that appeals only to a few. This movie isn't made for me, but it also isn't made for little girls, who by rights should be the target audience. It also isn't made for normal, well-adjusted women who grew up playing with Barbies, and it certainly isn't made for families, for whom a Barbie movie should be accessible, but this one isn't. So, who is this movie made for?
I loved the movie! I absolutely adored it. In fact, it broke into my top 3 favorite films of all time. I feel seen.
That's who. Director Greta Gerwig is of the coastal elite, and insofar as I have been able to ascertain, she has never spent any serious amount of time outside of the ideological bubbles in LA and New York where her worldview and sensibilities as a filmmaker were formed. As such, she is detached from the real world outside of the bubbles in which she resides. She may not have the best of grasps on human nature and the human experience, and so she makes ideologically driven propaganda movies for herself and others who share her worldview. My casual observations of audience reactions around the world is that the more aligned you are with that worldview, the more you will appreciate the movie and what Gerwig was trying to do here. And on that note, there is one hedge to my upcoming review and analysis of the movie. The movie opens with a reference to Stanley Kubrick's 2001 A Space Odyssey, which just so happens to be one of my all-time favorite movies. But I suspect those in the target audience mostly won't recognize it, and it will certainly fly right over the heads of little girls. So why is it here? Well, 2001 has layer upon layer upon layer of messaging and commentary, and at times, the apparent message in one layer is flipped on its head in a deeper layer. I think the reason for including this scene is Gerwig telling the audience that she tried, emphasis on tried, to put some Kubrick-esque layers of subtext in the movie. The reason I say that is because there are some who know cinema who claim this is a smart movie with a positive and inclusive message. How they got that out of this is honestly beyond me, but hey, maybe they picked up on a deeper layer I missed, which recontextualizes what I saw. Or maybe they applied too much goodwill and missed out some of the things that I saw. That I leave for you to decide. As we break this down, let me know if I missed something, or if maybe I caught something the fans of this movie missed, which recontextualizes what they saw in the comments. Let's begin with the 2001 sequence, where we see the world before Barbie, where the little girls play with the pre-Barbie dolls, which came in the guise of babies, which enabled the play pattern of little girls taking on the role of mothers, nurturing the babies. This would be a traditional gender role, derived from human nature. But then comes Barbie, and with that, the little girls reject the baby dolls, breaking them and all of the household accessories associated with them in favor of commercialism and self-centricism. There's obviously a double entendre here, but in light of what the original Kubrick sequence stood for, and the messaging that will come later in the movie, most notably the revulsion shown towards the pregnant Barbie, I do believe that those who choose to interpret this as a celebration of the rejection of traditional gender roles, up to and including motherhood, are entirely justified in that interpretation. Next, we see Barbie World, a matriarchy where the Barbies run everything. And every day and every night is a party for the extremely well-off Barbies, while the subservient and presumably homeless Kens have no meaningful existence outside of competing among each other for the attention and favor of the Barbies, who don't really want the Kens. Any of them. Because we don't see one Barbie and Ken couple that loves each other. Not one. The Kens are tolerated, but they serve no real purpose in Barbie World. This is the first indication of how the filmmakers see men. The Barbies may be living the dream, partying with their girlfriends every day and every night, but for the Kens, it's a pretty miserable existence. Now, apparently, this is Greta Gerwig's way of letting the male audience feel what women have historically gone through. This matriarchy is a commentary on patriarchy.
The roles are reversed. So if you watch this movie and you don't like the way Ken is acting or being treated, well, just remember that that's what women went through, for real, and still do to a degree.
The problem here is that this is taken to such a wild extreme that any comparison to any period in history anywhere falls apart. At no point have women been as subservient as the Kens are in Barbie world, where they literally have no existence beyond competing with each other for the momentary attention of a romantic interest who doesn't care about them. Even at the most patriarchal, if you will, in our actual history, men and women got together and married, and whatever inequality there may have been at a societal level, pretty sure there was mutual love and respect within the daily lives of most couples. We don't see that in Barbie world. There, the separation between genders is complete. So to me, Gerwig's intended commentary on the horrors of patriarchy with Barbie world is so ineptly and poorly executed it falls completely flat and should be disregarded. Once we do that, the matriarchy of Barbie world instead comes across as an ideal society for women. Sure, it may suck for the Kens, but that's their problem. The Barbies don't notice. To them, everything genuinely is awesome, and there's no reason to change anything. Indeed, our genetic Barbie's sudden problem, thinking about death and suddenly getting cellulite, doesn't come from within Barbie world, but outside of it, because director Greta Gerwig likes to put her own life into her movies. But courtesy of fourth wave feminist Barbie, or weird Barbie as she is called, we learn that the in-movie reason is that the girl who played with Barbie out in the real world is having these negative thoughts. So Barbie has to go out into the real world to take care of matters. And of course, the forever friend-zoned Ken, desperate for Barbie's attention and affection, tags along to the real world. What the movie refers to as the real world isn't so much the real world as it is, but as the ideologue Greta Gerwig sees it. A horrible patriarchy in which women are subjugated, and indeed, Barbie is subjected to sexism within moments of arriving. Now, I'm not suggesting this doesn't happen, but I am suggesting what is portrayed here is so extreme and so over the top and ineptly handled that again, any parallel to actual reality falls apart. For an even better example, look to this movie's version of Mattel, a company that here is exclusively run by men at all levels, up to and including everyone in the board. This is the filmmakers inventing some patriarchy for the movie version of the real world where none exists in our actual reality. Because in our world, excluding CEO Ynon Kreiz, Mattel has 10 board members, and exactly half of them are women. Also, Mattel's former CEO was a woman, and the Barbie division within Mattel has always been run by women. As seen in our Masters of the Universe retrospectives, those women were the ones who destroyed the He-Man brand when they demanded, and got, control over She-Ra. Mattel also has their ESG scores in order, with the Soros-funded Human Rights Campaign awarding them a 100% perfect CEI score for their LGBTQIAP+ representation. My point is, for her vision and ideological messaging to work, to create a contrast to the utopian matriarchy that is Barbie world, director Greta Gerwig had to invent some patriarchy where none actually exists for the movie version of the real world. In fact, I'll call it patriarchy world from here on out, because Gerwig's real world isn't our real world. But in disingenuously claiming that it is, the division and discord between genders is put to the extreme, and this is where Ken becomes the villain. Patriarchy world really has nothing to offer Ken. He can't get a top job since he doesn't have an MBA, and he can't even beach since he's not a certified lifeguard. But he is treated with the bare minimum of human decency, which is more than he's ever been in Barbie world. This then radicalizes him. Leaving Barbie behind, Ken returns to Barbie world, where he becomes the snake in paradise, instituting patriarchy, thereby turning the women's heaven into hell, all because he was exposed to some toxic masculinity. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but to me, the forever friend-zoned Ken seems like what people like Greta Gerwig like to refer to as incels. I mean, just look at the lyrics for the Ken song. How is that not an anthem for someone involuntarily celibate? And this particular incel just got exposed to some ideas that Gerwig considers extremely problematic. Meanwhile, back in patriarchy world, Barbie is looking for the girl that needs her help. All this time, Barbie has suffered under the delusion that by showing girls that they can be anything they want to be, she did something good. But she is quickly disabused of that notion when she is told by a teenage girl that she's just a fascist for pushing capitalism and a body image it takes a lot of work to live up to. So, to all the past generations of female Mattel employees and female Barbie brand managers who tried to make Barbie aspirational as well as inspirational, shame on you. You did bad, according to this movie. But Barbie soon finds the woman who actually used to play with her, namely this teenager's mother. This middle-aged woman is the one having trouble, in the guise of a midlife crisis. What is the cure for this midlife crisis? As it turns out, to vent. She didn't really need Barbie. She needed to bitch and moan and unload a rant of how difficult life is for coastal elite women like Greta Gerwig, because of chauvinistic pig men. For the general idea, take the rant that Jennifer unloads at Bruce in She-Hulk and just extend it. Now, far be it for me to suggest that there were no points in that rant, but I am suggesting how much any individual woman can relate to it does correspond with how closely her life aligns with that of the sheltered ideologue Greta Gerwig. With that healing rant done, Barbie is now the one who needs healing, so middle-aged mum and her teenage daughter come with Barbie for a joyride into Barbie World. And this sets the stage for more of the filmmaker's worldview to shine through. I am surprised not more have caught this. For a moment, the mother and daughter contemplate if they should tell the husband and father where they're going, as they might be away for a while. This is important, because although we've been led to believe our middle-aged heroine is a single mum, she's actually married, and this represents the only couple in the movie. We even see him trying to learn Spanish, as the wife is Hispanic. But the effect of his trying and failing is that he isn't understood, and he comes across as so awkward he might as well have been from another planet.
Now, the movie is a little tough on guys, but I would say never at their expense. It teases with love.
No, there's no love here, only contempt. The mother and daughter jointly decide, screw that guy. He doesn't need to know where they're going or when they might be coming back, and so they leave for Barbie World. When they arrive, they discover that Ken has turned the matriarchal paradise that was Barbie World into a patriarchal hellscape. Not only that, he wants to build a wall around it, and all the Barbies have been brainwashed. All except fourth-wave feminist weird Barbie, who knows what to do. She even says, either you're brainwashed or weird and ugly, there's no in-between. The only way to interpret such a crystal clear statement is that in Greta Gerwig's worldview, purple, red and blue-haired misandrists are the only ones that have the world correctly figured out. They are right, and everyone else is brainwashed by the patriarchy. But that's okay, our heroines manage to bring back all the Barbies with a combination of preaching gender studies and other assorted whining. Once all the Barbies are back, they carry out their master plan of segregating all the Kens by breaking their hearts and then manipulating them into fighting each other, thus interfering in a critical election so the Barbies alone get to vote and restore matriarchy and put the Kens back in their place.
The movie makes it clear that any extreme is not good. All women is not good, and all men is not good. And I'm glad that the movie made that point.
I don't know what movie Grace saw, but no such point was made in the movie I saw, quite the contrary. After Barbie removed any hope Ken might have had of them ending up together, removing him from even the friend zone, while apologizing and telling him that it was her, the rest of the Kens, who now have had a taste of independence, beg the Barbies for at least one Supreme Court judge. But the answer is no. They will remain subjugated, so take a lower court judge and shut up. Barbie then has a chat with her creator, Ruth Handler. But here, I feel it's pertinent to add that Ruth Handler didn't so much create Barbie, as she had Mattel license the